Now, all morning we've been showing you these new photos that have emerged of Her Majesty the Queen and her sister Margaret as panto princesses more than 70 years ago. Let's talk through some of those pictures in detail for you with royal photographer Ian Pelham-Turner. They're fascinating insights, Ian, aren't they?
I think, I mean, the ramifications of the past are very important. The ramifications of the future are very important as well with these photographs. I was only discussing with my business partner Helena Shard last night, who's been on this programme as well, talking about royal photographs, the importance of these types of things being found. So the history behind all this was starting in 1941, and Princess Margaret decided that she would like to do something for the war effort and for what was known as the Royal Household War Fund. And that was to actually raise funds for the troops. So they decided to do this pantomime. Margaret was always the one who was the outgoing one. Elizabeth tended to be sort of slightly more retrospective and a little bit more dated and stated in her ways, but Margaret was always the performer. And so they created this.
But the Queen got a few starring roles, didn't she?
Oh,
if we work our way through some of these, here we are. This is Aladdin in 1943.
I mean, the reality with all these photographs were that sometimes what was really behind the scenes with all these photographs were that they were trying to create some happiness at the same time as well. You've got to remember that the two children had been taken from Buckingham Palace and then being sent to Windsor Castle for their own safety. And so they'd had bombings, they'd had all the sort of types of things they had to rush down regularly to the cellars when bombings were happening over Windsor. So this was a method of actually trying to help the children find some happiness at the same time.
Within all this, it's because we're getting an insight into, say, that war effort, what they were doing, their concerns, but also tying in with this is fascinating now, particularly to see the Queen Mother in some of these as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see, Helen and I always feel that the Queen Mother, was really probably one of the biggest instigators of modern royal life. They had a much more relaxed atmosphere.
Much more of a connection with people, I think, partly because of the war, I guess.
Absolutely, partly because of the war, partly because of Marion Crawford. Crawford was the nanny brought from Scotland to actually really open up the royal children in this country. So, at times there was some great sadness because, for example, between 1942 and 1943, Elizabeth had this very good friendship with a young officer who unfortunately died. He was killed during the war. And she used to go and visit his grave afterwards, after the war. And so there's a lot of connections with these pantomimes at the same time. The actual widow of the author of the pantomimes was visited regularly by the Queen until she died in 1973.
Well, we see quite a few of the different pantomimes there. I mean, do they any ones recently that have gone on? Are we going to see William and Kate in panto this year, for example?
Could do. I hope I'm photographing it. That'd be a good one to do. I think that there's ramifications today. These types of photographs. I'd like to thank Sky News this morning as well, and especially Sunrise, because the reality was that the amount of publicity we got with our royal exhibition this year was seen by Chinese business people, and we've been asked to go to China next year to actually on a sponsored trip. To take all these photographs across at the same time.
It just goes to show, Ian, doesn't it, that fascination with the royals and behind the scenes with the royals is always there. It looks great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.